waits, and Johnson scores!
Masaba's in the middle. Wednesday here could seal it. Gassman finds Masaba.
Now Bannon with a great ball in. Here's an opportunity. Palmer scores! Liam Palmer has scored for Sheffield Wednesday.
This club will be the death of me one day. We never do things easy. We always like to make things difficult. Give with one hand and take with the other. We went from ecstasy to heartbreak in a matter of minutes. Well, probably seconds, to be honest. And you have to say that it's just the Wednesday way. Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Till I Die podcast. I'm James Mappin, and alongside me to discuss, dissect, whinge, moan, and hopefully laugh about that 1-1 draw with Queen's Park Rangers is Matt Johnson. Matt, how are you, mate? Have you calmed down yet from yesterday afternoon?
Yeah, I'm fine, James. Thank you very much for asking. It was to top off what was a fantastic week for me because Monday started out with me missus reversing into my car. So that started out the week as it meant to go on. And that yesterday, that 94th, 95th minute equalizer was just cherry on top of a very expensive and fairly shit week.
Yeah, and back to work as well, weren't it, last week? So
yeah, don't remind me of that.
Yeah, it comes in threes, doesn't it? Do you know what? Absolute disbelief. I was sat there on the north stand thinking, like, what's just happened? You know, we've gone 1-0 up in the 93rd minute, and we've walked away. It felt like a defeat, didn't it, Matt? To be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the disbelief was probably the range of emotions that were around me when that hit the back of the net from QPR yesterday. I mean, I will hold my hands up. I burst out laughing. Because it was just, in my opinion, the most Sheffield Wednesday thing that could have happened. Like it was, because it wasn't like it's a screamer, it's nothing, it's a 22-man pylon in the space of a phone box, and somehow the ball ends up in the net.
There would have probably been about 50 of those goals all around the country today, Sunday, Sunday League football-esque, weren't it?
100%.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah, anyway, we're live on Twitter, YouTube as well, so make sure you get in the comments and we'll do our best to read them out. And make sure you subscribed as well. Get us over that 1,000 mark since we've been stuck on 990 something for a while now. So yeah, to do that, it'll definitely help us out. Anyway, before we get on to footballing matters and that 1-1 draw, you tried some superstitious stuff, didn't you? Yesterday, ditched the coat that's 5-0 in terms of goals against and goals for. And I suppose at the point where we went 1-0 up, you thought it's the coat.
Yeah, I'll be honest. So for anybody who doesn't know, I've bought really, in my opinion, a very nice but a really overpriced coat. At the start of the season, and as you've just pointed out, James, the twice that I've worn it, we've lost 5-0 on aggregate. So I thought that's getting fucked off right in the wardrobe. That ain't coming out for a while until we're on a good run here, or we're safe. So I thought, right, I'll go back to something tried and trusted. This has seen a lot of shit. This has seen some good. We'll go down and wear this. And on the whole, like apart from for 60 seconds, for the last 60 seconds, it was working perfectly. I was thinking, right, what turnstile did I go through? Right, I've got to memorise all of this again. Yeah. But as it's just gone straight out the window, fuck it, I'll wear what I want and go where I want next time we're at Hillsborough against West Brom, so it's fine.
Yeah, superstitions have gone straight out the window, aren't they, really, on that one. Do you know what? My weekend's been it's been all right, became an uncle for the second time as well, which that was after the game. I thought, obviously, those things are quite long and drawn out and everything. And I was thinking, if Wednesday had won, it would have been a perfect Saturday. But alas, of course, Wednesday have to ruin it a little bit. I mean, we're talking like we got beat. Like I said earlier, it does actually feel like we've got beat. But yeah, just one thing I want to point out, Matt. When you have a breakfast, when you go out for your breakfast, what things do you normally see on the that buffet section thing where you get your breakfast from? What things are you going to find? Like a cooked breakfast?
It's a good question. I was just going to say, are we talking like a proper fry up here?
Yeah, like cooked breakfast when you go out for one, and you can pick what you want. What are you going to see?
Right. I'm wanting to see bacon, sausage, hash brown, mushroom, beans, fried toast preferably, but not many places do it anymore. They usually give you toast in kind of like one of those little toast holders. I'm wanting to see an assortment of juices. Occasionally, you dip your toe in the black pudding era, but like again, it depends on what mood you're feeling. Tomato. I'm not an egg person, but again, I would expect to see them out. Yeah, how come?
What about Yorkshire pudding and chicken wings?
Oh, fuck it, I'm involved. Yeah, it's like that. I am straight involved. Where and postcode and pin, please, James. Please now.
But Bosho this morning, not only Yorkshire pudding, gravy as well.
Oh, come on, now we're talking.
But for your breakfast, really? Is that like?
I'll get involved in that, James. I'm sold on that. If you're telling me that that's there at 9 o'clock in the morning, you'll see me there.
Well, it's probably there at 8 o'clock in the morning when it opens. I'm guessing as well. But honestly, when you're walking down, and you think like exactly what you said: sausages, bacon, hash brown, Yorkshire pudding. Anyway, yeah, I didn't partake because I was just thinking like. Boo. Why? That's not part of your breakfast. I mean, having said that, I can eat anything at any point. Leftover takeaway from the night before, I'm all in. But yeah, that was a bit of a weird one. That one. Jacob said, "Are we going to stay up this season?" That's a bit dark, isn't it? We're only 5 games in. Come on, it's a lot of football to go on that one. Right, let's get into the game then. Let's start with the starting lineup. 5 changes. Firmino, Johnson, Kabake, Palmer and Windass all came in. Bernard, Max Lowe, Jamal Lowe, Masaba and Gassama all made way. So it was Beadle in goal, Marvin, Firmino, Icky and Valerie, Charles, Bannon and Palmer, although Palmer was looked like he was playing more of a back 5. Kabake, Ugbo and Windass. What were your initial thoughts on that lineup? I mean, to be fair, we kind of had wind of that prior to 1 o'clock, didn't we? So we had a bit of time to digest it all, Matt. But what did you think to that lineup?
I think in terms of the players that are available, obviously with Bernard and Jamal Lowe basically missing out due to coming back so late from international duty, I think the 3 who missed out on selection choices in terms of Max Lowe, Masaba and Gassama, there's no arguments there. None of them can stick a case up or stick their hand up and go, I cannot be dropped. Realistically, after the last couple of games, you could have taken a look around a lot of the squad, maybe perhaps aside from Shea Charles and James Beadle, and thought, do you know what, everybody else realistically, nobody's pulling up any trees here. In terms of the lineup, I was pleased to see us go to what ultimately out of possession, obviously yesterday ended up as a back 5. I thought it was going to be sort of like that 3 in the midfield with 2 holders and Bannon slightly more in front. Thought that worked for the most part really, really well. I think it, again, personally, I know it's not the formation that Danny necessarily wants to wheel out as like his first choice, but I think it's the formation that suits the squad most in terms of the players that we have available to us at the minute. I had no problems with it when obviously we'd found out about it, and it was quite interesting listening to a couple of the people who clearly hadn't obviously been keeping an eye on sort of press conferences surrounding centre half issues and all the rest of it when I was stood in the pub, because there was a lot of people going, oh, I'm not sure about Firmino and Equalizer at centre half and blah blah blah, and you just think, well, it's realistically we knew the position that we were going to be in ultimately, didn't we? Because we sat here for 4 hours or whatever it was on deadline day saying we desperately need a centre half, and didn't get one. So this was always coming some point down the line. I'll be honest, I just didn't think it was going to be 15 days after the transfer window shut.
Yeah, when the press conference came out and it was like literally, Bernard doubtful, Ehekwa doubtful, Iofa doubtful. I'm thinking, come on, let's just have full house. Just say Firmino as well. How many of these centre backs are going to be out injured? Obviously, as it happens, Ehekwa we're fit enough to play, which is quite thankful really, because it might have been Shea Charles and Palmer playing at the back, but it wasn't, which thankful for that. For me, I echo what you said. Really, it is a case of the players that have missed out. And again, not one player in that starting lineup or in the squad has said to me, I have to play every week. Nobody's putting those sorts of performances, certainly not in the last 3 weeks anyway. So yeah, I was happy with it. Kabaki getting a chance, I think we were crying out for that really. Masaba being as frustrating as he is, yes, he creates a lot, or looks to create a lot, but in actual fact, kind of flatters to deceive at the end. So yeah, why not give Kabaki a go? And I think everyone were crying out for Johnson to play, and I think if people that watched the Grimsby game, both Bannon, Kabaki and Johnson worked quite well down that left hand side, especially in that second half when they were all on the pitch. So maybe Danny were thinking, well, I could perhaps recreate that little trio, that little group in there, and maybe that's going to work. So yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I had a look on, obviously, for Bernard and Jamal Lowe. They were playing in Honduras Wednesday morning, early hours of Wednesday morning our time. The flight were 15 hours to get back. So yeah, totally get that they've been rested. I had a look though, how many other players that played in that game against Honduras actually played this weekend. I looked at those that have played in the English League. There was Greg Lee from Oxford. He played. Ethan Pinnock at Brentford. He played. Full 90 as well, both of them. Bell at Luton played. Latibaudiere for Coventry did 65 minutes but started. Antonio either came on or came off. He played 45 minutes. Casey Palmer came off the bench, so he didn't start. And then Dakota Reed for Leicester was an unused sub. So there's 5 there that were clearly travelled a lot better than what than what Jamal Lowe and Bernard did. I get the resting, but I just think if everyone was rested, then I think fair enough. But I don't know. Maybe Danny's just being over cautious, but I just feel like, maybe they could have played. Not saying that we missed them, but certainly you're not going to have Femi Wharton and Mark Lehekwa as your centre back pairing for the rest of the season, if you know what I mean.
No, I agree with you. I think I suppose the only other thing is, just to go back to that point that you were making before we talked about that, is none of them. I thought Deschamps Bernard was one of our best players last year, and we both spoke about how important he was to the start of this campaign and tying him down. Realistically, he hasn't pulled up any trees either. No. That's not slating him, but he hasn't stated a claim. Now, if you've got players who have been in the building because Josh Windass came out after the game, and players have come out since and talked about how rigorous and grueling the last 2 weeks have been. If you've got players at your disposal and you feel confident in them to be able to go out and carry out a game plan, and it was changes, it wasn't just rinse and repeat from Millwall or Leeds or Sunderland. There was a whole system a whole system change. If you've been working with those players for 2 weeks and you think that they are capable of going out and getting a result, then I've got no problem with him sticking with it. Realistically, they'll have to sit and wait the turn again, and I suppose that is one of the, you mentioned Ethan Pinnock. He's pivotal to the way Brentford play, and has to play. You look at some of the players that were mentioned there; they are instrumental to the way their football teams play. At present, Jamal Lowe is, you'd argue, a starting 11 player, but also you could argue he could come off the bench. Deschamps Bernard, yes, I agree, would be ordinarily in our starting 11, and I would fully expect to see him line up away at Luton next week in terms of that centre half position. But ultimately, you have to give a chance to those players who have trained for 2 weeks, because again, unless if Deschamps Bernard was pulling up trees before the international break and he'd been instrumental and we'd just been unlucky, yeah, okay, there's an argument there, but I had no problem with it whatsoever.
Yeah, well, Jacob's saying Lowe would have buried those first half chances. Yeah, I mean, look, the solution to the problem is always the players that aren't playing, and I've said that for many times. I mean, look on social media, because it's the easy way out. You can always say, "Oh, this would have happened, that would have happened, etc." That chance that fell to Windass, if that falls to Ugbo, maybe he would have buried it, but it didn't. So yeah, it is what it is. But no, I think on the whole, I was happy with it. Pre-game there was a lot of people saying Johnson. I must admit, I wasn't really on that hype train that everyone else was on with, in regards to him, because I did feel that, defensively, as much as Max Lowe's not been fantastic, again, comes back to that, the solution is the person that's not playing. But I felt like Marvin Johnson might be caught out a little bit, especially playing with playing in a 4. As it happened, it seemed like we did play as a 5, and I guess having Akin Firmino there, who is left-footed naturally, probably is going to help him somewhat. As in terms of cover down that side. So yeah, I mean, look, I think we'll get onto it, but maybe I should have been on that hype train, because I thought Marvin Johnson was arguably probably one of the best players on the pitch for most of that game, to be honest. Do you know what though? Like, in terms of the game itself, the overriding feeling for me is you cannot score a goal and take the lead in the 93rd minute and not win the game. For me, it's just inexcusable. Like, where's that game management? Them two words do get thrown about quite a lot in football by pundits, players, fans alike. Everyone says about game management, but there was none, absolutely none. And to be fair, I think it's something that we've lacked for a long, long time. And since when Stockdale was here, we seemed to get a bit of that. But since he's gone, and certainly before he was here, we've had none of it. Where's the taking one for the team? Where's the going down with cramp? Where's just booting it into Rowe's head or just booting it downfield? Literally, it wasn't like we were in the 80th minute and we had 15 minutes left, to hold on. We're talking seconds. That's all we needed. What were it? 5 minutes of injury time. I know we played 6. We scored in the 3rd. 120 seconds there. That's all you need, and it just. Yeah, it's just 2 points thrown away, which I feel, in terms of a win yesterday, would have done the world of good. Just in terms of obviously we'll get into the performance and everything else, but the performance aside, 3 points, a win, second win of the season. Going into this League Cup game, and then we've got Luton at the weekend. It would just be just give you so much confidence. But now. Well, I don't know how the players feel, but deflated, if it's anything like what the fans feel.
I think, I agree with much of what you say. I think you saw from QPR a side that have got that in spades yesterday, that game management. I thought it was fairly obvious from when they came, from inside the first 2 minutes. It was really obvious to see what they were trying to do. They were attempting to run the clock down, frustrate us, frustrate the crowd, and attempt to hit us on the break. And up until 70 minutes, that was pretty much exactly how it went, but we were actually on top in the game. QPR then had a bit of a spell, and you could see that they weren't quite sure how to manage it, if that makes sense, because they hadn't really had much of the ball up until that point. No. Their attacks had been very much sort of like breaking very quickly, and you could see that they'd clearly been prepping to play that way.
Just not very good at it either, by the way.
No. And I thought, as the game progressed in the final kind of like moments of it, I thought obviously it was heading for a draw. But again, you were still seeing that from QPR. The ball would go out. They would take a long time to take a throw in. They would take a long time to go and collect the ball. There was a foul in the towards the Kop end, kind of between the Kop and the south stand, which their centre half lined up to take, and then he left it for their goalkeeper, and he wound the clock down. All of those things that we've been talking about.
Dembele went down as well, didn't he? And I think he got booked in the end. And then he were doing his shin pads, and he was sat on the ground. Yeah. Referee's just looking at him. It's like they got away with it, and I think they were close to the line. But if they don't get pulled up for it, they're just going to keep doing it again and again. Smart. And again and again. And we just don't do anything like that. I mean, look, I didn't want us to waste time. Up until the point where we scored. You don't need to do any of that when you're at home. But it's just being, like you said, smart, being clever. Every other team does it, bar us. And I feel like we've gone over this. Maybe not me and you, but over the time since doing this podcast, I must have mentioned it time and time and time again. But yet, we never seem to learn, and we never seem to do that. Again, Stockdale came in, we did start to do more of that, the infamous finger injuries and stuff like that. But when he's not been there, we just don't do it. And I don't know if it's out of being like embarrassed to do it or anything like that, but everyone else does it bar us.
I think it's also probably down to the coaching, and this isn't a slight at the coaching team. The coaching team have said that they want to be progressive and attacking front-footed football. That does break down to free kicks. We've also seen good chances, and we saw them yesterday, where we have a hand on the ball and look to take a quick free kick in behind, whether that be from Bannon into Windass, kind of like running in behind a defender, or Smith or Masaba. And it does, it has its benefits and drawbacks. There was one player who I did think who was on the bench yesterday who was scheduled to come on for the final substitute, which was Callum Patterson. I think Patterson has a bit of that about him. That change was then changed for Max Lowe coming on the pitch, and that was to do with, I think that was to do with the cramp issue that was it. It was Marvin Johnson was suffering, which again I understand the decision. Callum, I will say this, Callum Patterson was absolutely furious on the sideline. Anybody who was on the south stand, like mine is right up at the top, just in front of the boxes, but smack behind the benches, he was stripped and ready to come on. And when Marvin Johnson went down, Danny sat him back down, got Max Lowe to get himself warm and get himself sorted and to come on. That little sports bra vest that they wear with the whatever it is, like £500 GPS tracker, that will be coming clean out of his wages, because you could hear him smash it on the floor from where we were sat. And again, I just think that if that particular player comes on, I think he does waste time. I think he's got that nasty streak about him. But the 11 who were on the pitch, I agree with you. There was no collective responsibility to do the smart thing and go down. There was nobody, again, I'm not one for feigning injuries, but with a minute to go when you're trying to see out the clock, you do what you have to do to try and win a game of football. Somebody's got to go down holding their face. Somebody's got to go down like demanding kind of like the ref stop the game, because there was several instances where QPR were caught short at the back, whether that be Beadle catching it and bowling it out. And there was nothing wrong with players. They'd just challenge for a header and they would throw themselves on the floor and just completely take the sting out of it. And that is what you have to do. I think it was, as you say, it's because it's under a microscope at the minute because of how little time there was remaining in the game. When obviously we gave away the free kick, which subsequently led to the corner, which subsequently led to a 22-man scramble in the 6-yard area. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's something that we have to get better at. It's something that even me and you have talked about it with, Coventry on Boxing Day last year. We talked about it towards the back end of last season. Personally, I don't put it down to naivety. I put it down to they're being instructed to play quickly and they're being instructed to play in that way. So I think that probably feeds into the way in which that they play, because they're not thinking, well, if I go down here, the ref will probably stop it. They're thinking, shit, I've got to get back up because he's going to want me to get back into position. I think on the whole, I like that way. I'd hate us to be that team that does literally fall down every 2 minutes. So I'll probably be contradicting myself a little bit, at points during this season if we did start to do that. However, like you said, there's a time and a place, and in injury time, when you 1-0 up, like really just you've more chance of just seeing the clock run down than you have scoring another goal and putting it to bed. It were 1-0, like everyone was waiting for the whistle to be blown. Not one fan thought, well, we're going to draw this game, and I'm sure QPR fans didn't think that either, probably hence why they celebrated in the way that they did. But Matt, let's talk about the performance as a whole. I think you have to say that it was definitely an improvement on the previous 3. Like, you can't say that it weren't. I think we dominated the game from start to finish. All right, the second half was an absolute snooze fest, if I'm being perfectly honest. And it was, there was times where, QPR had nothing to sing and shout about because they were terrible. We weren't singing either. It was, you could hear a pin drop in Hillsborough, from probably the 50th minute on. I thought it was, really, really just nothing happening. But we were never really threatened. I didn't think. They had a few half chances. But similarly, I think their keeper didn't really get threatened a great deal either. A lot of wayward shots and things. But I think on the whole, a much better performance. It changed it up a little bit. We did go long. We wasn't just passing it out from the back. Yeah. But yeah, I think, I don't know about yourself, but like I said, I won't say I was delighted. I didn't think, it's back to what we were like against Plymouth. But based on the previous 3 performances that we've had in the league, I was pleased. Let's say it was a massive improvement from the last 3. Just all over the park. I know ultimately we've ended up drawing the game, but on the whole, it's the manner of obviously the how in which we've drawn the game. But had that game finished 0-0, I think people would have walked away and gone, got to finish your chances. But aside from that, that's the only thing that you could really grumble at, because actually I thought from minute 1 through till minute 90, the team worked really, really hard. They worked well. They clearly understood what their individual tasks were, what their individual roles were. It was much more clear to see in terms of what the identity of how we were trying to play and how we were trying to get at QPR. I thought the pressing out of possession was really, really good, and we forced them into a number of different errors, and they didn't create anything when we were set back in shape. The only chances that they managed to create were on a counter. And going forward, the left side of the pitch was, for my money, the most potent and attacking threat that we've had, probably, obviously since Plymouth, but probably if you remove sort of that game as a bit of an outlier, we've had all season over the others, because actually there was a constant threat throughout the first half. I still thought that there was a threat in there through the second half as well. I know that the second half sort of petered out into a bit of a damp squib for the most part up until the 90th minute. I thought we were really good yesterday in terms of QPR are a mid-table side. That is a mid-table team in the Championship. They will not be in and around relegation trouble this year, as they've proved by their results up until this point. That is probably more the type of game that I expected us to have against those sides that are around us, because I think had we come out with a 0-0 draw and there'd been none of that last gasp, kind of like all of the drama that we saw at the end, we'd have come away and gone, got to be beating them, really. They were crap.
Do you know what, Matt? I'd have probably been happier with a 0-0.
Yeah.
As it happens, like I said, 0-0, finish your chances. Oh, one of them games. As it turns out, 1-1. You're thinking, like, how have we not won that game? Like from the position that we were in. Whereas, if Bannon would have missed that effort and the whistle would have gone, I wouldn't have been. I'd have been a little bit annoyed, a little bit disappointed, but I certainly wouldn't be like angry and as the way I feel now. But
coping with it well, then, James.
Yeah, not really. Do you know what? I was just stood there, like you said, just looking around, thinking, "Fuck, like really? Like, what is this actually really happening? Like, have we actually just conceded a goal in this sort of manner?" We'll talk about the goal in a bit. I mean, one thing I want to address, and again, it's just a reoccurring theme, is how shit we are at set pieces, and more specifically, corners. Like, we are more threatening from their goal kick than we are from our own corner. Do you know what? The ball goes out. There was a point where the ball went out towards the cop and it hit the corner flag and then went out for a corner. Genuinely, I don't know why everyone gets excited and starts cheering. Like, we'd have been better off having a throw in. That we don't. I mean, that's another thing as well with the movement on the throw-ins. I think set pieces is as a whole, we are shite. And do you know what? In the second tier of English football, if you can get your set pieces right, you will propel yourself way up that league just by virtue of like I said, scoring from corners, scoring from free kicks. I mean, direct free kicks as well. By the way, I mean, when was the last time we saw one of those go in the top corner? Yeah, answers on a postcard for that one. Yeah. We're just not good enough. We're just not a threat. The corners were floated into the back post every single time. But it can't have been an instruction, because you can't attack a header by running backwards. Michael Heck was having to get his head on it. He's running backwards, and guess what he does? He heads it. It either goes out for a goal kick, or it just goes up in the air, and the goalkeeper goes, "Thank you very much for just cushioning it down for me," and he collects it, and then that's it. I mean, Bannon didn't take many, did he? Windass were on most, if not all of them. Yeah, I think it was a mix, yeah. But again, I suppose we've got to applaud them, because not many didn't beat the first man. The problem is they beat absolutely everyone and went and sailing to the back post. And I mean, we have brought in a set piece coach, haven't we, from Accrington? By God, he has got his work cut out. That's all I'm going to say on that one.
The throw-ins are, you've already mentioned Sunday League, let's mention it again. The throw-ins are peak Sunday League. 2 down the line, 1 to flick it on, 1 to try and get it behind. You've got a centre-half who offers, and then you've got a midfielder who stands still about 5 yards from him to do like a bounce-back pass. There's no movement, there's no creativity, and we don't do anything quick. We've also started now throwing the ball directly down to the floor rather than actually trying to hit a man, because there was 2 yesterday where I thought...
Deshaun Bernard.
There was two yesterday where I thought, well, that's a foul throw. Like, I think it was Jan Valery who took one. He was trying to whip one back to Liam Palmer, and it must have bounced about 3 foot from him. And I thought, that's got to be a foul throw.
Deshaun Bernard came straight off the subs bench, and then we got a throw in. I think it was either a throw in from like actually the point where he came on, or we got it just a little bit after. But yeah, that was. How that one did not get pulled back, I have no idea. Even like most of the Wednesday fans were like thinking, "It's foul throw that ref." Like,
yeah, and that's it. And that's it. If we can all sit there and go, "That's a foul throw," like, I mean, there's a problem. The corners are a real bone of contention, I think, for everybody, because I can't work it out whether it's players trying to really pinpoint hit an area, like in the box. Like, there was a lot of deliveries to the back post yesterday, and there was always a player at the back post who was supposed to be the target, whether that be Michael Ahekwa trying to outjump 2 players even though his run's getting blocked, which is again smart defending, or whether it be a floated one to the back post where everybody goes near. I think their keeper makes I think it's their keeper who gets a fingertip on it, where Josh Windass is left free at the back post, and again that's potentially a tap in. But it's simply the deliveries are not good enough. I now would like to see... I mean, we had Marvin Johnson on the field yesterday. We've seen him take corners. We've seen the fact that his deliveries from those dead ball situations can be more threatening. Well, I'd argue anybody's can be more threatening. We should have had that lad on who was taking them fucking... the half-time challenge. We should have had him, because my God, did he ping a few.
And he said he had a skinful as well.
Yeah,
which I thought was, maybe all our starting 11 needs to have a couple of pints before we kick
100%.
off. Go back to the 90s,
So I would much rather us just drill the ball in at either anywhere between chest and head height and just hope for some pinball, because at the minute, the floated delivery is starting to become very reminiscent of a Darren Potter delivery. In terms of, I used to sit on the north stand and watch Darren Potter float, and Kenny Lunt was bad for it as well. Both of them float balls in, and just a hope and a prayer that somebody's going to outjump someone.
But where's the pace? Where's the whip?
Yeah,
these are professional footballers. We've got footballers that are fairly capable with both left and, well, they've got some left footers, we've got some right footed players in there. Just hit it, like you said, hard, whip on it, bend on it. It just needs a flick. It's already going in. It's already bending in. It's got that shape on it. It needs a little flick, and that's it. You don't need to do anything with the ball. But yeah, it is just very predictable, very, very easy to defend against, because we've seen that. I mean, I'm just looking now. Set-piece goals this season, Derby, they've scored 8 goals altogether. 5 of those have come from a set-piece. So they lead that metric. I mean, there is a lot of teams, and obviously it is only early days, that have not scored a goal from a set-piece. Apparently we've scored 1 from a set-piece so far this season. Was that... it must have been Plymouth, because Barry Bannon's goal went from a set-piece, and that's the only other goal we've scored, isn't it?
Would you? I suppose it depends on what phase of play that you're going on. If that's league goals, I suppose, would the phase of play for the Grimsby Callum Patterson one be classed as a corner which goes short that then goes to Kabaki that he then delivers in?
Possibly, but this is just league goals, so I can't for the life of me remember the Plymouth goals and which one was from a set piece. But
Michael Smith was a delivery, which was from Marvin Johnson with a ball down the channel. Josh Windass was a rolled back one from Masaba. Svante Ingelsson passed it for Jamal Lowe, and which was the second? Someone's going to be screaming this in the comments or listening.
There was an own goal, weren't there? There was an own goal, weren't there?
Yeah, which was a cross. So I don't know where that's come from. If that's come from, you'd say it's a throw into a possession. But again, I don't see where that's come from. Again, please don't quote me on this stat, James, but I am sure I read the other day somewhere that it's something like a third of the goals in this division come from set pieces. We are effectively, again, playing with one hand tied behind our back at the minute, because we are simply so... I mean, as you say, I would much rather see the ball go out for a goal kick at the minute and a team try and play out around our press than us deliver the ball into the box. And I know that sounds a really ridiculous statement, but it is true, because the chaos that was created for argument's sake for their equaliser yesterday comes from a good delivery into the box. With a player running with intent and purpose and making sure that they are the first to the ball. Our deliveries do not actually allow anybody to get a run on anybody at the minute, because the deliveries are, the ball is in the air for so long that professional players have a long time to react to it. You know, we may all struggle as paying customers and fans going to watch it. We may really struggle to get there and adjust to it. But these are professional footballers whose job day in, day out is to read the trajectory of a round football. So they are going to pick up where this is going inside of about half a second. It's appalling. And you're right, that poor bastard's got his work cut out at set pieces, because at the minute, it's appalling.
Definitely. Matt, have your expectations changed all this season? Because I think we both had us finishing around about 10th, 11th or something like that. And I said it many a time that I'd be happy with 10th. I mean, Christ, I'd be delighted with 10th now if someone offered it. I still do think that is attainable, and it's probably where we are going to finish. I think we'll get it together, and we have still got a January transfer window. If Chansey wants to open that dusty wallet that he's got, we might be able to get some maybe a centre back that can play football, who knows. But I do think we are going to be good enough to do that. I don't think we'll be in any sort of worry or problem. But there was a lot of people that were saying playoffs, if we're not going to do it now, we're never going to do it, and things. But it has been a massive reality check for quite a lot of people, I feel.
Yeah, and I think the hype surrounding it, I mean, I'm sure we spoke about it after Leeds, like the hype surrounding Sheffield Wednesday is to do with the fact that nobody expected us to stay up, and we're a massive, fuck, I've done it. We're a massive football club. We're a massive football club in a shit position with a horrendous start, and there was only Bolton who'd come back from a worse position than us, or some stupid fat like that, and we managed to do it, and it was solely down to the way in which that we played, the points we picked up, and from October we'd have finished 8th. I get all of that. Short answer to that is no. My expectations haven't changed in terms of where I think we'll ultimately finish. If you look at the games that we've had in those 5 games to begin with, Plymouth and QPR, you'd argue those are winnable games. We've won 1, drawn 1. You look at Sunderland, the way in which that they've started the season yesterday aside, okay, cool, you might expect to lose there. I think their position last year was completely and utterly false, based off kind of like all of the managerial changes. Leeds, no, I didn't expect us to get anything there. I expected us to put up more of a fight than we perhaps did, but yeah, it is what it is. Millwall was the one that had me the most worried, because Millwall were a side who I would expect to be around us. I don't think the style of football is particularly great at Millwall. However, Millwall were going into that game desperately needing a result going into the international break, because otherwise they'd have gone into it with 1 point. They were fired up beyond all belief, went and nicked the game. Remove the scoreline for a second. That can happen away from home. You can lose away from home. I think we are probably 1 or maybe 2 points behind where I would have expected us to be at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because of how horrendous, again, we mentioned it last year, didn't you? Like you guys mentioned it on the pod last year, how horrendous the start was. The start's equally horrific this year. And actually, I think the cup games now, there'll be quite a few of us who are heading up to Blackpool on Tuesday night. The cup is now becoming a bit of a hindrance for us in terms of those games. We could really do with a clear week here, not a Tuesday night over at Blackpool in prep for kind of building on what was, for 90 minutes yesterday, a good performance going into Luton, who haven't really done anything yet.
Because also as well, just on that with the cup, you're in the 3rd round now. There's a chance that you could get a big team in the next round, and we've got a great chance of getting through as well. So it also gets to that point where I think you're going to probably see a mix of, a few rotated players and first team regulars playing on Tuesday. And you look in Luton, we'll get onto this later. Luton haven't got a game in midweek. They crashed out to the cup against QPR. Funnily enough, they played them twice in a week. It were mad in the last round. But yeah, they've be fresh, they're going to be rested. But just onto that point is when we were talking about like the games that we've played and stuff, it just shows as well when you look at this week's fixtures and results how mental the Championship is. So Sunderland 4 wins from 4, going to Plymouth, who were awful on the opening day, and we slapped them 4-0. We played Sunderland in the second week and got hammered. But like that's there's no two ways about it. And then Plymouth then play Sunderland and beat them 3-2, which is mental. And then again, Luton beat Millwall 1-0, but Millwall then cruise past us. And then we're playing them next, and you're thinking, what's going to happen there? Which Luton's going to turn up? Which Sheffield Wednesday's going to turn up? The QPR beat Luton 2-1 the week before, or the week before the international break, and then QPR yesterday were absolutely terrible. Did not once, other than the goal, really didn't really threaten us at all. No. And it's just showing you how mental this league is, and anyone can beat anyone. And I think we said that in our when we did our 1 to 24, we kind of had the teams that we thought were going to be at the top and at the bottom, and then that mid, everything from 7th down to 20th, you could literally just put anyone in there and just press randomise, and that's probably how it's going to finish up, and put a blanket over everyone. And I think we're seeing that, and I think that is probably a reason why we shouldn't get too disheartened by some of these results. We are going to pick up some wins. We've shown that we're better than that, and I feel like it is just going to be really, really close. And I said this on the debate show in midweek for those that tuned in, and I was saying how if you're going to finish 10th, we are going to lose a lot of football games to finish 10th, because if we didn't lose that many football games, we'll not be 10th and we'll be second or something. Do you know what I mean? So we're going to have to get used to losing football games, because you could argue that we got very used to that at the start of last season. But do you know what I mean? We're going to win one, we're going to lose one, and it's just going to be like that kind of throughout the season. Gary Fox has just said we never beat teams who we're expected not to. Forest Green Rovers is another one that you can add to that. Matt, I felt like there was a lot of lack of understanding between players, and there's certain players that are just not quite on the same wavelength. Ugbo and Windass is two that I'm going to pick out for that one. I feel like they need to I think Ugbo just needs to move in with Josh Windass for a week and just kind of get to know him a little bit better, because it would certainly benefit. I think it feels like Windass has got a left foot and he hasn't. Stop giving it to him on his left-hand side. There was a moment in the first half where I think we broke forward, Windass got it, and he was heading towards the byline, and Ugbo was kind of holding back. It wasn't really going. He was holding himself backwards. And it was almost like he was expecting Windass to chop back and cross it on his left foot, and he was obviously holding back so he didn't have to check his run. Windass is not going to check back and hit it on his left. He's just going to put it across first time with his right foot, and he did that. And guess what? He wasn't there. This wasn't the first one, by the way. In the opening few seconds, this was a little bit later in the game, and then there was one where in front of the away stand, where late on in the second half, and Ugbo kind of. Windass played it into Ugbo, and he laid it off for him. And if he were left-footed, he would have just ran onto it and hit it with his left foot. He's not left-footed, and Windass kind of went to the right-hand side, for the little reverse pass, and the pass went to nobody. And there's just not quite there. Did you sense that at all?
Yeah, I also think that the players that we, because I know there was a lot of, I'm sure we'll get into him, I know there was a lot of criticism yesterday for the finishing, and I would agree with you that players do have to finish some of those chances that were there. I personally don't feel that Josh Windass and Ike Ugbo complement one another even remotely. I think it's a really difficult task for both players, and that's through no fault of their own. It's not saying that they're not good players, and that we will get some joy out of them. It's because when we saw the best from Ike Ugbo last year, it was down to very tricky, very technical wingers who would do things like beat a player and pull it back into areas. When Josh Windass plays out in that right wide forward position, he looks to get the ball out of his feet first time and smash it as hard as he can, either across the box or towards goal, which is, you would argue, probably a more, without wanting to dumb it down, it's probably a more traditional English style of playing in that position. Whereas when you watch Ike Ugbo play with Anthony Masaba frustrates the living daylights out of a lot of people, myself included, but you always know roughly what he's trying to do. He's always trying to get back to a byline and cut it. Like, he might take about 7 goes at trying to beat the man to do it, but that's what he's always trying to do. Like, it's not it's not overly he makes a really simple thing, Anthony Masaba, incredibly complicated, because he has got the pace to beat a player, but what he wants to do is stop, create the space, leave him for dead, and then whip it back across the box, because it allows the striker in the middle to just peel off, just create that movement. It sucks the defence in, and the player's got a tap in. We saw that last year when we brought in Poveda out wide. We saw the best out of Arghhhhhhhh and both of them in those first 7-8 game spell, where they were not always linking up, but there was lots of opportunities created from that. I thought the left-hand side of the pitch, again, as we mentioned right at the top of the show, I thought the left-hand side of the pitch, that connection between Marvin Johnson and Bannon, looked a lot more natural than it has done in previous weeks with Bannon and Max Lowe. I thought they obviously know each other's game inside out, and they've developed a really, really strong connection and know what one another's going to do. I actually thought Olaf Kabaki complemented them really, really well yesterday. I think he's a technically gifted footballer and has got quite a football thinking brain, if that makes sense. And it appears in the limited time that we've seen him, he learns really quickly what a player wants to do, and never really gets in their way. I always feel when we play Anthony Masaba, if you're a left wing back or in that position, or a left back, and you're trying to get round him, it must be a murder, because you never know whether he's going to leave the space or not. Yeah. Whereas with Kabaki, yesterday, you could see he realised he's going to want to run in behind me. I'm going to come in and fill this space and just drop the ball over the top. And there was a couple of times when Kabaki did exactly the same in terms of in reverse. The right-hand side is a problem, because at the moment it appears from the last, I'd say, 12 months, that Danny, well, we're coming up to 12 months, aren't we, since Danny's been in charge. He doesn't fully trust Jedi Gassama out on the right, whereas I actually probably think he's the one who should be playing there, because I think he may not do as much defensively as perhaps Josh Windass did yesterday, who I did think was good going backwards as well as forward yesterday. But he is going to pull the ball back for your strikers to put the ball into the back of the net. I feel like we've got
a lot of nearly players. They're all like nearly there, but they're not all singing from the same hymn sheet. And I hope that there's a point where, I mean, the first opening game of the season against Plymouth, everything did come together, and we want more like that, where everyone knows where they should be, or should I say, they're just in the places where they think they're going to be, if you know what I mean, and everything's just one touch, bang, finding a man, not having to look up or anything like that. And I think it does come with confidence as well. I think the fact that we've took 3 really, really poor results does give you confidence a bit of gives it a knock. And there's times where you're second guessing yourself in terms of your passing and things like that. So that is going to happen, but that needs to come back quickly. And I do think when it all does click, it is going to be phenomenal, like we've already seen already this season. But there's just time; it's just frustrating. 2-3 good passes, and then there's just one poor pass, and it's not even good defending or anything. You can't say, the defender's done well to get across. It's just a bad touch or an overhit pass, and you're thinking, just really, really frustrating. I was going to go through kind of the chances and stuff, but just in the interest of time, let's just go straight to the goal then. Barry Bannon, 90 plus 3. It's so funny because literally minutes before that goal, seconds, I guess, I'm saying to Steve, Barry Bannon has had an absolute stinker today. He had a really, really poor performance, and then he just pops up and does that, which I just think, that is just exactly what that just kind of epitomises that the performance that he had, really. But Valentin crosses it in from the right. Smith obviously come on as a sub, does great to have that awareness and see where Barry Bannon is, and kind of improvises, chests it down to Bannon, and then he does some sort of, I don't know what it is, scissor kick type shot with his left foot. The keeper did not even move. I don't know if it's wrong-footed him or what, but the keeper's not even moved. Top bins. And do you know what? Obviously I celebrated, but it was a really muted celebration. It was just really weird how, just totally not expecting it, how the game had panned out. I expected the ball just to balloon over the bar. And obviously it went, I think it is barring in. And I didn't even think it had gone in. I thought it'd kind of hit the bar and on the line or wherever, because I'm way down the other end on the north stand. But yeah, when you look back at it, what a finish it is. It's a fantastic technique, like you said to me, isn't it, really?
It's like legitimately the technique to do that is absolutely outrageous. I know you posted out a photo yesterday evening of kind of the body position just after the ball's come off his foot. He's almost horizontal, but he's still standing on his feet. You know, that's the type of strike that you tend to see players hit, but they jump and scissor kick it and then will land. You know, what I would affectionately term as the Stephen Fletcher strike, where you would see him try that a lot. For Bannon to get himself into that position to be able to get over the ball, but also not to lash at it and put it 50 yards over the bar, to get it moving in the way that it does, and also to keep it underneath the crossbar, only just, but he keeps it underneath the crossbar, and it's postage stamp as well. It's not like it's, inside of the goal by 5 yards and keeper's just been flat-footed or anything. He could have chucked himself at it. He's still getting nowhere near it. Just going back to the build-up for the goal, I thought that was where we saw probably a real benefit to the system change, because we were so much higher up the pitch when I think kind of like the ball breaks down and we managed to recycle possession and work the ball back out to Jan Valery. That I think we saw quite a lot yesterday, those times when QPR would clear the ball, and how many times were we saying this at Millwall and Leeds and Sunderland, it just wasn't dropping to a Sheffield Wednesday body. Yesterday, how many times did that happen? And that was to do with the positioning of where Shea Charles, Liam Palmer at the start of the game were when we were in possession of the ball. When we were in possession of the ball, we were much higher up the pitch. We were much more front-footed. I think that obviously is benefited by the fact that QPR sat in, to borrow a Darren Moore phrase, a really low block. But it was, the delivery in is... It's not a great delivery from Jan Valery. From Paul Valentin. Michael Smith does really well, actually, to hold his man off and to chest the ball down. Bannon is in acres of space and probably could take a touch, but takes it first time. And again, strike's absolutely outrageous. But just going back to the point you made right at the top of this, I agree with you. For the 20 minutes before that, I thought he was, for the first time in my eyes, and I know we're going to talk about this a bit more on extra time, I thought was showing his age then, where there was passes that were half a yard wide of him, and he was throwing his arms up rather than reacting in the years gone by that we've seen from Bannon. There was a lot of frustration, I think. I think that's probably how the game was going as well, and he was also probably... Again, I don't know whether he would come out and say this, but I think, the first half I thought he was okay. I thought second half, game probably wasn't really for him, and probably was incredibly frustrating from his perspective. And you started to see him again do those things that, again, I know it's him meaning well, but trying to take on a little bit too much rather than trusting those players around him. Him and Marvin Johnson for the last 15 minutes, again, it's only because of where I sit smack in front of me, were absolutely going at one another about everything, whether it was misplaced, whether it was overhit, whether it was a bad throw. They were just constantly at one another's throats for the last 15
I always feel Barry Bannon would be great in like the 1980s, early 90s. He's that type of in the way it comes across in terms of the mental approach to the game, beat you with a stick rather than dangle a carrot. If in terms of like that, I don't see him ever put an arm around someone. I think he's totally different off the pitch than he's on the pitch, by the way, and you can see that. But he's just, obviously he's so passionate about it. But yeah, it's a weird one because I feel like you just have to just rein it in a touch. We're going to talk about it on extra time, so do head over to Patreon and you'll be able to listen to that one a bit later on. We'll touch on their goal, Alfie Lloyd. I think we've spoke about it a bit already, but a lot of people are saying it should have been a foul. Like, where do you stand on this one? Because I think, there's a few opportunities where the ref could blow, but from where I was sat, I had no idea what was happening. The ball was just pinging around, and it was just carnage. I think you could argue it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other in terms of, when you slow it down, I think there's one guy that's holding Beadle down to the ground. I think Palmer gets one straight around the back of the legs, and he goes down like he's being shot. Beadle then just comes and just, for all intents and purposes, shouts pylon and just jumps on, something you used to do when you were at secondary school, and and it all kind of, I mean, it was happening in slow motion at the time, but I suppose it all happens so quickly in real time that, if it had given a free kick, I think you see that every time that sort of thing happens. But I think that referee were trying to let things go throughout the game. There was quite a lot of opportunities where he could have given a foul, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, I don't think the melee is where we conceded the goal, personally. No. It just comes back to that game management for me. But, were you calling for a free kick at that point?
I think it's well-intentioned from the referee with only 30 seconds left to play of just let them play and whatever happens, happens, because that, I suppose, as fans is what we cry out for a lot. When you're on the wrong side of it, it's shite because you immediately, if you got back into the car or you were walking back from the game, there was immediately 30 people on Twitter who dissected that Steve Cook was sat on James Beadle, that somebody else had leathered Liam Palmer, that one lad's handballed it, that it's fallen to this person, that you could argue that the lad's offside because he's the other side of the keeper and there's only one on the line. I personally, I suppose, remove the emotion from it, remove Sheffield Wednesday. I kind of want to see a referee just let that go.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, however, that is a foul. Of course there are fouls in there, but there are probably fouls from both sides of it. The thing that was really, I think the thing that was really worrying for me on, it must have been the 6th watch back before I could actually pick out who the fuck was who, was just before that ball goes in, there are 2 Sheffield Wednesday players on the line. Obviously, Dishon Bernard, who makes an outstanding goal line clearance because realistically, the header's beaten Beadle and it's in the back of the net, and this might have all been a moot point, and we're all whinging about the fact that we still can't defend fucking set pieces. It's the fact that there are 2 QPR players in the vicinity of where that ball is dropping, and there isn't one Sheffield Wednesday player around it. There's a lot of Wednesday players on the outskirts of that melee, but there's not actually anyone right in the thick of it. There's not anybody who's, you mentioned that it was Sunday league. I watched my lad do his first football session on Monday, and it was just, a load of 4 to 6-year-olds following the ball around. But every single one of them's trying to hammer the ball as hard as they can, and it's just a sea of legs. Realistically, it wasn't that yesterday. It was hitting people and pinballing. It wasn't just 22 blokes just literally swinging legs at it and it wasn't going anywhere. But again, I think it was the watch back of it. I was just surprised by how many QPR bodies were actually where the ball was dropping. Now, that may just be down to luck. That may be down to whatever. Again, the other thing that I was surprised about is when you look at the players who are on the line. I know you've got 2. Surely somebody else has got to get back there as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just fucking leather it. You've in that situation. I know it's happening really quick, like what I said, but you get it. You just boot it anywhere will do for another corner. But you just don't boot it in your own net, for Christ's sake. Boot it anywhere, up in the air.
Just up.
Just volley it. And you know what? If you do that and it hits someone in the face and it goes in, you think, well, that is just really, really unlucky. But it were none of that. There were none of that kind of. I don't know. For me, we shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. If that thing happens on 60 minutes, it just is what it is. But we conceded that goal by not managing the time properly at the end of the game. Like you can dissect it all you want, but that just shouldn't have really have happened. And we're sat here now, feeling sorry for ourselves. Have picked up a point. Everyone else is laughing at us. I mean, to be fair, I'm just thankful that there was one horrendous miss by Derby County in the show, and an unbelievable mix up with the Bolton game, passing out from the back. Because if it wasn't for those 2, thankfully we are like the third. It's like the third worst thing to happen. This weekend, because those 2 certainly overshadow. By the way, if you haven't seen him, just type in. I can't remember the lad's name, but just look at the highlights for the Derby County. Just type DCFC in hashtag into Twitter, and you'll probably soon find it. And do the same for Huddersfield against Bolton, because that I think it is the 4th goal. It is comical, to say the least.
If you're whinging about us playing out from the back, watch that bastard back. Jesus, like there is no business playing it around there.
What is he thinking? Just passed it to the guy in red, but mental.
It's appalling. It was very reminiscent of Will Volks at Leicester last year. For anybody who hasn't seen it, just before you move on from it, James, because I know you'll be wanting to move on from it. In the build up to it, I think when you were talking there, I was thinking, was I particularly frustrated? I was particularly frustrated about the referee not giving a free kick on Anthony Masaba in the build up to it, because the lad goes to win the ball and does challenge him, and yes, Masaba does go down like a sack of shit, and it's an appalling dive, but the lad comes in at shoulder height trying to win the ball, doesn't win it, and actually just tugs Masaba back and he hits the floor. From there, obviously, QPR recycle the ball. Max Lowe makes a really poor decision to give the referee an opportunity. I don't think it's a foul, but he gives the referee an opportunity to make a decision. When the ball goes out for the corner, there's, again, when you watch the extended highlights back for anybody who hasn't done so, Bannon is screaming at Masaba that he's got to be more switched on to it. And just before the free kick's taken, you can actually see their manager on the touchline shouting, go short with it. And obviously, from there, it is what it is. But yeah, I think, on the whole, it's just it's a mess, isn't it? But it's not like a catastrophic error, which we've seen in the previous 3 games. It's one of those where 4 or 5 weeks' time, everybody will think, oh, yeah, that was shit. But it is what it is, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a good job that it were for, I suppose, a point, and we've not lost the game. I think. Yeah.
That'd have been tough.
Yeah. Before we kind of look ahead to Blackpool and then Luton next week, I just want to pick out a few players to talk about, because obviously some new faces, some players we've not seen before, things like that. Actually, let me just read out some of the 3-word match reviews as well, because there was some good ones, of course. Follow us on Twitter at WTID Pod. You can tell how pissed off I was, because normally there's quite a few tweets after the game, and there was just literally 2. And then that was it until this morning. Been pretty quiet on that front. Peter Holmes has gone better than Millwall. He's also gone with manager expectations as well. Paul Pashley's gone with far too lax. Lewis Jordan only needs 2 words, typical Wednesday. Steve Turner, progress was made. Nice to see Steve before the game as well, wearing the Ati New You shirt that I sent him as well, which is always nice. SWFC S6 has gone with bottom 6 club. I'm not buying that for 1 minute. Adam Dallamore, doubters keep doubting. S9 Owl must do better. Paul Burton, under 8s defending, kind of to your point there, watching your lad running around. Ewan's gone with very, very disappointing. I'll read a few more out. No game management. Danny's honeymoon over. Set pieces again. Better, wasteful and unlucky. Sunday League team, typical Wednesday again. We can't defend, soft as fuck. Better but shit. Disheartening late collapse. How the fuck? I'll read one more. Get it out. Yeah, needed a John Smith's have it. Didn't it really? At the end, it wasn't very forthcoming. Marvin Johnson, then. He's first league start this campaign. A lot of people shouting and raving about him. I thought he had a great game, and from the off, he put a ball into the. He put various balls into the box. Some great deliveries. We're just crying out for that. I think, obviously, I know we didn't do anything from them, but just get the ball into the box. We said that last week, didn't we, or the week before? Get it into the box, see what happens, and he just does that to a T.
I think in this formation, he is the obvious choice who has to start in that left-back position. And this is nothing against Max Lowe. It's nothing to do with where he's come from previously. And as I know, there was a narrative attempting to be spun yesterday by a number of people, some quite big media outlets as well, in terms of like trying to spin that narrative that Sheffield Wednesday fans all hate him because he came over from Sheffield United, which is not the case at all. He just simply has not done enough to solidify that place. Marvin Johnson, I'll include myself in this. Marvin Johnson just keeps proving everybody wrong over and over again at Sheffield Wednesday. And isn't it time we all just shut up and go back to singing his song again? Because realistically, you know, in the summer, I said we'd upgraded our wing-back positions and it felt like we had some more adults in the room. Yesterday, that was one of the most complete performances I've seen from a wing-back in definitely this season. I'd argue last season, and since when he came back into the team after his extended holiday in Dubai. He was outstanding yesterday. He legitimately was brilliant. The link up between himself and Bannon, if we're going to continue to persist with both of them, they both have to play because they're two people who understand one another's game inside out. I think he has the same tendencies as Bannon in terms of he screams and shouts at people, but he does also encourage people. I think he does really well in terms of getting out of the way of a winger and reading when to get out of the way of a winger and when to go and offer help and support. Because I think that is a really tricky thing, I suppose. If you've been a left winger predominantly for the first portion of your career, and then for the last 3 years we've made him a left back, it must be really difficult to not want to go forward at every available opportunity because you must be thinking, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And actually he's become really adept at figuring out when to go, when to cause problems for their defence, and when he needs to just hold back and hold position. I do think he was aided by the fact that out of possession we were in a back five yesterday with Liam Palmer dropping in, because it actually meant that whatever side the ball was on, the wing back went and engaged and everybody else had shifted around into a flat four, and it made us a lot more compact, and it allows him to do the strong points of his game, and it allowed Jan Valery to do those strong points of actually going out and engaging that winger who was, you know, potentially receiving the ball from, I'm thinking a number of QP-Arghhhhhh kicks where their keeper was always looking to find the player in that position, clip it over kind of like the pressing winger and flip it over there. I thought that was really good. And again, as you say, the deliveries into the box, I'm of the opinion they're of varying quality. Some are outstanding, some are shite. But again, over time, you're talking a volume of deliveries, you're going to create more chances. Yesterday, we saw more chances created than any other game aside from the Plymouth game, and that was just by the sheer volume of balls into the opposition box. He takes a huge amount of credit for that yesterday.
Does he start for you against West Brom next week?
Against
Luton.
Yeah, against Luton. Yeah, I think he has to start. I'm trying to think he will be on the opposite sides of the pitch to who I think is their best player in Alfie Doherty. But again, I just think he has to start because he offers you an attacking threat that, you know, we've played 5 games. For 3 of those, we've had none. And the 2 that we have, he's assisted in 1, and he was instrumental in an overall good performance yesterday. Has to start, and that's nothing against Max Lowe, who we've brought in, but you've had your opportunity for 5 games. It's time to have a sit down for a bit. That's just long and short of it.
Definitely. Arghhhhhhh, then I want to touch on him because obviously we brought him in for I want to say a substantial fee. I mean, an alarming fee if you're a Wednesday fan. If you're anyone else, it's just mere pocket change, I think. But certainly for us. Anyway, he's not quite got up to speed yet for me. Yeah, it looks miles off it in certain occasions. Not doing the things that he was doing when he was here, you know, at the back end of last season for me. I just hope it's just because he's not up to speed. I know Danny said that we weren't going to see him until this point. Obviously, necessity meant that we'd rushed him back, and we certainly needed him a little bit before, but just looks like half a yard off the pace. Again, obviously that link up with Windass wasn't really there. Wasn't really in the game, I felt, yesterday. Found it very difficult to actually get a stranglehold on the game, and ultimately I've been underwhelmed with him so far this season. I don't know about yourself.
Deal with the fee first, the transfer fee. The transfer fee this is what you get for a striker who you pay that much money for. You want a striker who's going to go out and have an opportunity a game and more than likely score. Go and spend 10-15 million because that's what you need to go out and buy that. You spend £2 million on a player, you're going to get exactly what we got when we signed Arghhhhhhh. But again, I think he's a good footballer. I think he's better with better players around him because he is a striker who relies wholly on his service.
Yeah.
I thought his service was very limited yesterday. He had one opportunity I can think of at any note, which is the ball from Jan Valery across to him where he attempts to lift it over the goalkeeper. I thought he was offside to begin with. He's not. He holds his run really well. The ball from Jan Valery is bobbling all over the place when it's fed into him. And actually, their goalkeeper does really well. Their goalkeeper is on his touch, but makes zero contact with him, which leaves him in no opportunity other than to lift it over him. Ultimately, it goes wide. Again, I would agree with you. I think up until this game, I think he's looked half a yard short. I don't think he's anywhere near as aggressive in his pressing as he was last season. Now, whether that's down to a direct instruction from the coaching staff or not, I suppose only they will know. I am just of the opinion that if you create chances for him, he will score. But at the minute, I know we talked about it was better. The problem, as we were all saying, it's final third yesterday. Like, there was lots of deliveries into the box. How many of them were quality? How many of them were into the right areas to give a striker an opportunity? Windass plays one inside of 1 minute. He's a dreadlock away from heading it in.
Yeah.
Valery plays him a bobbly ball across the 6-yard area. You could argue he should score, but the keeper does well. Aside from that, what opportunities has he had yesterday? The opportunities all fall to our wider players, which again is, I suppose, why we're probably seeing Josh Windass at the minute as opposed to Masaba or Gassama, because you probably think he's got more of a chance of scoring. But again, based on the strength of that yesterday, I'm not sure.
If you look at the goals that Ikubo scored for us last season, he hasn't created any himself. Every single one has been ball across the box, header, or a header obviously against Birmingham. Again, another one against Birmingham, cut back to him, one touch. Rotherham was exactly the same. I think West Brom, he capitalised on Masaba going down, one touch, bang, roof of the net. Ian picking it up, 30, 40 yards out, going on a mazy run and taking a few players on and then hitting it from 25 yards. All his goals are in the box, poachers' goals, Fox in the box. And those players, like you said, they need to feed off just chances and getting the ball to him. And so maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on him, but still, I have to speak honestly about it. And just a little bit underwhelming, really.
I don't think you've been harsh, James. I think it's probably down to the fact of, again, it's a player we've spent money on. It's a player who, as we've spoke about it a number of times, Sheffield Wednesday fans have been conditioned to think that 2.5, a fee rising to 2.5 million is a lot of money for a championship player, when actually in reality it's not. If he were to go over the course of this season, if you look at, you did the podcast with the QPR fan in the midweek, Sinclair Armstrong, I know they're a different age profile, but if you look at Sinclair Armstrong's fee is 2.5 million rising to 3.5, and he cost Bristol City 2.5, 3.5 million for a player who scored 3 goals in 60 appearances last year. That is realistically, you are hoping that Ikubo for a 15-game period catches fire and scores 9 goals. And if he does that, and it gets to the end of the season, and he's got around 9-10 goals, you just kind of have to sit there and go, sort of what you get, really. Like, gone are the days of a 15, 20 goal a season striker being picked up for 2 million quid. Like, unless you unearth a real gem, and they are the exception, not the rule, that is not the case in the Championship anymore. Goals cost you money, north of 6-7 million, which we just won't spend at the minute. So, again,
all we can hope with is Bailey Kadamachi absolutely firing on all cylinders at Lincoln, and then being able to recall him in January and feel like we've signed a new player. That's what we're relying on. I totally get your point there. Another player I just want to talk about is Shea Charles. Obviously, you was there at Millwall, so you've seen him already in person, but that was a shite performance. Let's be honest about it.
Different yesterday.
Yesterday was at home at Hillsborough in front of the Hillsborough faithful. I didn't. Obviously, I wasn't at the Millwall game. Obviously, I saw it on TV, but I thought Shea Charles was solid. He gave the ball away once in a very, very dangerous position, but I thought he recovered quite well, and nothing came of it. But I just think his kind of awareness on the ball is fantastic. Just how he manoeuvres his body to get in, when he controls the ball, he gets his body in there first. He either goes down and gets a free kick, or he just gets his body in there so that they can't come at him, and then he's kind of changing pace as well when he gets the ball. He just all of a sudden that acceleration gets away from a player. I did feel like most of his passes were backwards, if I'm being honest. When I'm thinking back, I'd like him to be a bit more progressive in some of his passing. There was a pass on, and he went for the easy option out, which, again, it's easy for me to say that sat in the stand, but again, that's giving it the eye test. That's what I kind of felt a little bit. But on the whole, I was happy with him and playing that defensive midfield role. He just looked solid. I think that is the word that I have to use. He's just solid.
He was man of the match for me yesterday. In terms of the players that we saw, I thought everything that you would want from a defensive-minded midfielder he did, and he did to a T, and he carried it out. And it's exactly what both me and you have sat on this podcast and have talked about desperately needing. I thought that was there for spades and in abundance yesterday. Formation was different from Millwall, and I think that helped him massively. That idea that there could be players who could step out from the centre backs kind of like position and join him when we got into possession. I would have liked to have seen it. Liam Palmer had a good game yesterday, but I would quite like to see him play in a 3 with Svante Ingolson and Barry Bannon alongside him, because I think what you would probably see from him then is exactly what you describe. He passes sideways to Ingolson, who is more progressive, who then plays it forward. I think what you are, and what I suppose what we are going to get from him, I think you are going to get a ball winner, not somebody who tears into challenges like a Sam Hutchinson style defensive midfielder. You're just going to get somebody who doesn't need to make those challenges, because if he needs to make those challenges, he's made a mistake. It's nothing flash. There's a couple of moments where he turns and runs away from someone. You think that's good strength, and then he plays the simple pass before he can do a step over and beat somebody else, because he's not interested in that, because he's grown up as a centre half and a defensive midfielder. He wants to win the ball and then get people on the front foot by either giving it simple and retaining possession, or playing the ball sideways to a winger, which is clearly where we are trying to hurt teams this season. I just thought everything that you wanted from a defensive midfielder, I thought he did yesterday. In his second appearance, first game at Hillsborough at home, I thought he handled it really well. We were all speaking before the game about Dembele. He ultimately ended up being found in space out on the right-hand side rather than drifting into that number 10 position, because I think he just realised after a while, I'm not going to get any change out of this kid.
Yeah, he certainly needs to put his shooting boots on anyway, because the one effort that he had was awful.
Yes.
but anyway, that aside, I thought he were great. Right, let's put QPR to bed. Let's briefly touch on Blackpool on Tuesday in the League Cup, of course, and then we'll talk a little bit about Luton as well. Not West Brom, as I keep saying. That is the week after. That is the next game at Hillsborough. Is it Saturday at 12:30? Isn't it, that one? I do believe. Yeah. Gone all 3 p.m.s at Hillsborough. This is a rare occurrence this week. Blackpool unbeaten in the last 5 games in all comps, 3 in the league, 1 in the League Cup and 1 in the Papa John's. Thank God we're not in that competition anymore. It was a 2-1 win against Exeter this weekend. 11 yellow cards in that game. Somehow there was no red. Jordan Rhodes did come off the bench, and he did get an assist as well for their 93rd minute winner. We all know who the gaffer is, Mr. Steve Snaky Bruce. And yeah, their leading goal scorer so far, James Husband, who is a defender, so nailed on for him scoring from a corner or a set piece. I presume, having not seen any of Blackpool, I presume that's where all his goals have come from so far this season. We won't be seeing Ashley Fletcher. He's suspended, so don't put your double on for Jordan Rhodes and Fletcher both to score, because he'll be void and you'll not win a penny. How do you think we should approach this game on Tuesday, Matt? Do you think it is? I mean, I kind of alluded to earlier that I feel like it's going to be a bit of a mix of both first-team players and kind of fringe players. Do you think he's going to go full fringe, or do you think he's going to go attacking, or how do you think he's going to approach this one?
And Danny has got a fucking big fringe. Let's be honest.
I've got no fringe. I'm going full. I'm going full starting 11. If we base it on how your hair looks, anyway.
I think you've got to go for a blend at the minute, because actually there's a lot of players who need to earn their spot. Post Plymouth, it was really obvious who was going to play versus Hull. It was so obvious it was going to be the other 11. And you could argue probably the same at Grimsby because we had Leeds coming up the following. Was it Leeds coming up the following weekend? So it was fairly obvious, like who was going to play. For this, I think every single person has got an opportunity at playing here, aside from James Beadle, probably Bannon.
To be honest, you could say that the 11 that went out against QPR was a bit of a blend because they've 5 changes. That is a bit of a mix. So, it's going to be interesting. I think Masaba and Gassama will probably play because I feel like Kabaki will hold his place for next week in the league. And maybe Windass will probably play because he did have quite a lot of chances. I know Tom, we're looking at all the data saying he had a great game, and Tom and Danny, I feel like a twin together. They look at all the stats and stuff, so that's probably how Danny's seen it as well. So for me, Masaba and Gassama have to start on Tuesday really, and again, a great opportunity for him to show what they can do and go, look, Danny, you've made a mistake against QPR because I should have been playing.
Yeah, agreed. I think I would probably. I mean, I definitely think it's up top. It's going to be Michael Smith and Callum Patterson. I think I'd quite like to see Charlie McNeil because it doesn't appear that we're going to see him in and around the league setup for a while. In terms of the team, whether he doesn't think he's ready, whether he doesn't want to throw him into this, and he's going to bed him in around October. I'd like to see Sean Fasire come into the team again. I think every time that I've seen him so far this season in those cup games, he's acquitted himself really, really well. Svante Ingelsson, again, I don't know whether I'd want to start him because, again, I think he could be really useful down at Luton. But at the moment, he doesn't. He was flavourer last month. He's definitely not flavourer this month with the manager. Realistically, it could be anyway. I think the only ones that you can probably predict are centre halves. It's going to be a version of what we saw at the weekend with probably Deshaun Bernard doing 60 minutes just to blow the cobwebs off.
Obviously, League Cup, it's third round. Do you want us to go for it? Like, I mean, obviously, of course, you want us to win. Like, nobody ever goes into a game and think, I want us to lose today. But if we did lose and we did get knocked out, are you that arse? Because for me, I think when you get, because for me though, in the third round, there's a chance of getting a decent team. By a decent team, I think like a good Prem side in the fourth round of the cup. It is money as well, like much needed money that we're getting. Even if we play them at Hillsborough, obviously we're going to get a big gate if it is a big team, and I just feel Blackpool it's an opportunity to get into that fourth round. I think we can't. I don't want us to go in there just like not arsed. I want, because I feel like again we didn't win at the weekend, so a win in the League Cup could just help lift us that little bit heading into Luton at the weekend.
If you look at last season, was it last season where we went down to? It was last season, wasn't it? Where we went down to Southampton? No,
yes.
Sorry, it was season
before.
Was it? Yeah, I was just going to say, sorry, my bad, I've got the wrong season. Ultimately, for me, I feel it's a bit of a win-win, because if we go out, nobody's really that arsed. If we stay in and we have an opportunity of getting another win under the belt, we see some good things from some players. We see potentially a different formation. We have the opportunity to get drawn against a quote-unquote big side in the next draw, either home or away. That's a positive. If we go out, we've got a horrendous run of fixtures coming up in the next 5. So ultimately, to me, again, either way, I'm not really too fussed.
We lost to Mansfield last season on penalties. We beat Stockport on penalties, and then because that was the thing, weren't it? We'd the thing when we'd still not won a game even in the League Cup because we'd drawn.
Tyreek Backinson scored, didn't they? Tyreek Backinson scored in the 90th minute to send it to penalties against Stockport, didn't they?
Yes, he did. 97th minute, and then Masaba scored against Mansfield, and Oates on the 85th minute it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go to the weekend after then. Luton. Got the first win of the season last time out, 1-0 win away at Millwall. Did what we couldn't do a couple of weeks prior. Rob Edwards is their gaffer. Mark McGuinness is a player that we'll know very, very well. That did he go for 10 million or something ridiculous like that?
Close to, yeah.
Yeah, I know it was a big fee from Cardiff. Like I said, they've not got a game in midweek. They're out of the cup. They're not in the League Cup third round. just looking at some numbers as well, they were ranked 11th so far in terms of possession, so very similar to us. They're just over that 50%. We're just shy of it. We're 13th for comparison. They can't string two passes together, though, seemingly, Luton. It's probably one of their problems. 22nd for pass completion rate, which, is not ideal. I had them as being up there at come the end of the season. They could still well be. Middlesbrough were rock bottom. 5-6 games into the season when we played them last time, and look where they finished. They were up there. They're finding it tough, aren't they? I'm glad that they've won this week, because if they hadn't won 100% when Charity FC roll into town, they would definitely got to win next week, because that's just what happens, isn't it, with us, especially the way, in the manner that we've gifted QPR a point. It's a tough one, this, because pre-season you look at this game and go, we'd be lucky to get a point out of this one. Now, given the start that Luton have had, you've got to say, well, Luton are there for the taking, really. Like, just from looking at the results, like, then they're not going to be that confident. We've got to be looking, and I mean, I would be happy with a point at their place, but really, it wouldn't surprise me if we came away with all three, and that's got to be the aim, really.
I'm going to be negative here, James. I think it's going to be 2-0 Luton. The only reason I say that is because I think the first 4 games prior to the international break, there was still a lot of players who were probably thinking they were going to get a move out of Luton. There was a lot of Carlton Morrises, your Adebayo's, your Alfie Doherty's, the players who were, had come up with them, had gone through the ranks with them, to Heath Chung, all of those type of, not to Heath Chung, he'd signed obviously for them in the Premier League, but those players who'd caught the eye for them last year, I think they were probably banking on the fact of, well, don't get injured here, because there could be a move to, I don't know, insert newly promoted Premier League club or abroad here. Yeah. You've then got a dose of reality when you come back and you think, fuck, I'm still in the Championship. And I'm still at Luton, which is, they did really well getting up to the Premier League. It's, fairy tale, all the rest of it. But you're still at a club which is, arguably and historically a League One type of club. They've then had the international break where they can reset. They've come back and they've beat Millwall, who we know from playing Millwall just before the international break are absolutely no pushovers. They won't slap teams 3-0 like they did us, but they're not a pushover, and they've gone there, and the goal was a really well taken finish from a centre half. I just have a sneaking suspicion that they will just get it together against us, because I think looking at their front line, and no, they haven't been all cylinders firing. They play a 2. And we very rarely face a 2 up top. And just looking at our centre-half options, I think you have to go with a back 5 because of both Adebayo and Carlton Morris are big units. Both of them like a physical game. Both of them want the ball in the air. I think actually in the centre of the park, if we line up how we did yesterday, I think we'll be absolutely fine. The back line again is the one plus point from that is Ike knows where Mark McGuinness's weak points are.
Yes.
I just think in the wing back positions as well that they're very strong there. Who's the lad from Rotherham who they'd signed last season? That's the one who's like shit off a shovel. I agree with you. I mean, I had Luton top at the start of the season. I said that they'd finish top of this league. I just think it's that period of time where those sides who, you expect to, and you look at how they've started and you go, fucking hell, they've been shit.
Yeah.
It's this little window in it where they all start getting it together. And I just think I've been really positive about all of our predictions with no basis for it, to be perfectly honest, after Plymouth, aside from Plymouth. I just think they are going to be one of those sides who probably just have a bit too much for us on Saturday. I fucking hope not, by the way, because I've got a close mate of mine who's a Luton fan, and boy, God, does he not shut up about them and how much of a fairy tale it is.
Well, one bit of news for you which might delight you, I guess, is Ogbene doesn't play for Luton anymore. He's gone to Ipswich, and to be fair, I forgive you for all that excitement that we had on transfer deadline day. I suppose you might have missed that that bit of news that he's gone, but he's at Ipswich, so he's stayed in the Premier League, which it's mad how we I mean, I don't know how true the link was, but I'm sure that name popped up with a link to us. And look at him now. He's this was kind of
last season, wasn't it?
Yeah, and now he's
Darren Moore.
Do you know when you look at it, how the worlds collide, and Darren Moore's now playing his trade in League Two. George Byers is also playing in League Two as well. Who, he's going to feature in extra time when we do that very, very shortly. But yeah, mental. I was going to ask you for your score prediction, but you've already given me it 2-0 Luton, which you pessimist fucker.
I just think they'll. I just think that they'll score, and they'll score first. And just going off our given track record, James. I just again, and that's not a criticism at how we played yesterday, because I've said it a number of times. I thought we were excellent yesterday. I just still don't have that belief in the squad from what we saw about how we conceded the goal and how soft we are in those key moments. Realistically, if you were going to go down and get a result at Luton, I want you to do exactly what QPR did yesterday. I want you throwing yourself on the floor every 30 seconds. I want you taking an age over throw-ins. I want you feigning injury. I want all of that to get them back under a load of pressure when it gets to 70 minutes and they haven't scored. Because then I'd buy it. You're not going to play this lot off the park in terms of footballing style. So you've got to do something different, which currently I just don't think we have.
Well, Kenilworth Road is not a happy hunting ground for us anyway. Certainly not in the league. Just looking now, 3-2 in COVID. Never won.
That was shite. That was shite.
2-0 up as
2-0
well
up there.
Very early on, and that wheels well and truly fell off in that game. 1-0 defeat in 2020. We did actually beat them in the FA Cup in 2019, but that's not counting because I said it's league.
I was there for that one.
3-2 back in 2007. Again, a defeat. A 2-2 draw in 2005. 1-1 draw again in 2005 earlier on. God, how far back? 3-2. Look, 3-2 has been a popular result. 2004. 2-2, God almighty, 2-2 in 91, 2-0 defeat in 89. Christ, you have to go back to 1989. So basically, in my lifetime, we have never beaten Luton in a league match at Kenilworth Road.
2-0 doesn't sound so stupid now, does it?
No, but that all goes out the window. I'm hoping for 2019 FA Cup vibes, 1-0 away win. That's what I'm hoping for, definitely. Do you know what? I've got to be positive. I'll go for a 1-0. I'll go for a 1-0 win. Luton are they're not confident. They'll get a bit of confidence from the fact they beat Millwall, but the pressure is on them, I think, more than the pressure is going to be on us. To be honest, it's just a shame that we've got Luton and then we've got West Brom coming up. I suppose it all depends on how we play on Tuesday as well. We could get a bit of confidence from that, but I'm going to go for a 1-0 win against Luton, and be delighted. I would be happy with a draw, however that comes, 0-0, 1-1, 2-2, whatever, and we can just go back, get back to Hillsborough and see what happens. There. But make sure you get your score predictions in as well. Just on that, congratulations to there was three people, who correctly guessed that Sheffield Wednesday would draw 1-1 with Queen's Park Rangers. They are Michael Gothard, Charlie Sharp, and Alan Williams as well. So well done for correctly predicting that we'd draw 1-1. You don't win anything, not on this show. So just pride and bragging rights is all you win. There might be something at the end. I am gonna at one point compile the actual all your scores. I've not got around to doing it. I didn't realise how many people would enter as well, quite frankly. So do keep them coming in. If you want to find a link, it's in the link tree in our Twitter bio. So head over there. And that's exactly where you can also sign up to Patreon as well. We're going to be talking about Barry Bannon. There was a controversial opinion on the debate show saying that his legs have gone and we need to move him on and stuff. So we're going to be talking about him, about his career at Sheffield Wednesday so far, various questions, whether he perhaps does need to move on, whether we need to start preparing for life after Barry Bannon, and what indeed that looks like. Because whether you like him or you hate him, at some point that is going to happen, whether it's this season, next season, the season after, whenever it is. There will become a point where Barry Bannon no longer plays for Sheffield Wednesday, and we're going to be discussing that on Extra Time. So again, massive thanks to everyone that's been listening, massive thanks to everyone that's been watching us live on YouTube and on X as well. So yeah, join us on Wednesday for another debate show. We'll be talking about Blackpool and what happened at the Seaside, whether we can get another win and get through to the fourth round. And yeah, we'll obviously be back again with this show, same time, same place next week as well. So thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you all next time. Cheers.